Hi everyone, Diana Rankin here with your weekly message from Phillip. And this is week, what is this, 44, I think? Let me check. Oh, here's my calendar. This is week 44, and it is October the 25th to the 31st. And on the 31st, we're going to have the full moon. So I have and that's Halloween also. Halloween's on the full moon. I have to check my calendar here because I don't know what the dates are without the calendar. So it's the 44th week already in 2020. My goodness, that time is going quickly. Today went too quickly for me too, and I'm running a little bit later than usual. That's okay. So what we're going to do today is we have a question from one of you, and thank you for sending those questions in. I appreciate it. We get to them as quickly as possible. And this week, we're going to be talking about animals. And do animals as a species have a covenant with us, with humans? And yes, they do. And I'm going to read not only Philip's answer, but I want to also read, you've seen this book before, Unearthed Voices by Juliet Tanner Jones. And in full disclosure, this is a friend of mine who wrote this book. And I love this book. I really do. I have a lot of friends who write books, but this really speaks to about the animal kingdom. So I'm going to read a passage from this book to answer that question, as well as what Philip has to say. And then we will get a message from one of my books, the Master's Book of Answers by Philip. And as you know, this is an oracle book, so each page just has a different answer on it. We'll get that as well. So, it's kind of like, do I start with Philip first or do I start with Juliet's book? And I'm going to start with Juliet's book because I think they're both saying the same thing but different. And when I say they're both saying the same thing but different, what I mean by that is, well, let me read them and then maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. Put my glasses on here. Now, what I want you to know, just give you a little bit of background so you understand who the characters are in this book, is Jenna is an reluctant animal communicator, and Winifred is a very special horse. And I don't want to give too much away, but just say those are really the characters that we're going to be dealing with in this particular passage. And Winifred she comes in she's a head of the horse council in the horse realm. So she's a very wise horse. And then Jenna, as I say, is this reluctant animal communicator. And this is during one of their communications. And Winifred here speaks very differently. Winifred turned one eye toward Jenna and with a slight toss of her head began to speak slowly and deliberately. Long ago, the horses agreed to link their fate to that of humans. The horses wished to speed their soul's development. You see, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I moved the mic a little bit closer. I have a new computer and the microphone on the computer, which I used to just use the microphone, didn't pick up my voice. So I was moving the portable mic closer. So let me begin again. Long ago, the horses agreed to link their fate to that of humans. This is Winifred, the horse, speaking. The horses wished to speed their soul's development, you see, and humans, as being of light, could help them do this. Humans, in turn, needed our help. They needed our strength and our speed, so the horses agreed to a mutually beneficial arrangement. We entered into a covenant to become domesticated. Again, that was the horse, Winifred, speaking. Though Winifred spoke slowly, time is different in other realms. To Jenna, it felt as if all the information rushed to her at once, like a deluge of water that runs off quickly and then sorts itself out as it flows away. And yet somehow Jenna understood, even if she couldn't explain quite how. But the horses did not foresee that humans would come under such a complete spell of their ego, Winifred continued. The humans misused their power. They ceased to see horses as partners, but as subjects. This has not always worked well for the horses. Jenna pushed her palms against her thighs and sat up straight. She groped for her notepad and pen on the nearby table. No, she thought, too risky. Don't want to disturb this connection. Just listen. She returned her hand to her leg. Meanwhile, the earth is transitioning, Winifred said. You can see the evidence of this. The human conflict, the unusual weather, disruption in nature. She is moving to a new energy. When the transition is complete, the new earth will be like this one, and yet nothing like it. Jenna's brow furrowed as she strained to listen. The horses are transitioning along with the earth. Those humans who are able to transition to this higher energy will also move into the new earth. Transition? How? To transition, humans must heal themselves. They must become aware of their spiritual connection to all. They must learn to respect an animal's journey as much as their own. Jenna rested her forehead in one hand and rubbed her hair. How, Winifred? How can we become aware? When you interact with animals, you can ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is what I am asking of this animal to our mutual benefit, or simply to prove I can control them? Jenna slowly nodded. And those humans who do not transition, they will remain behind to continue their soul's development until such time that they are ready. Jenna wrapped one hand around her fist and placed both hands under her chin. Are all horses moving into the new earth? Yes. So the humans who transition, they can still be together with their horses? Oh, perhaps, perhaps not. What? Jenna's eyes flew open. What do you mean, perhaps not? During this period of transition, the horses have the option of terminating the domestication covenant. This is the decision we must make, and time is running short. If we terminate the covenant, we will no longer remain domesticated. Jenna placed her forehead in her hands and rubbed her temples with her middle finger. No longer remain domesticated. What does that even mean? In the new earth, we would be like the antelope and the zebra. Humans, even those who have successful transitioned, will no longer enjoy a relationship with horses as they do now. Like the antelope and the zebra, Jenna repeated to herself, as the realization that horses may no longer partner with humans slowly began to sink in. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut and smoothed her forehead and eyes with her fingers. And do you think this is what the council will decide? I can tell you only this. If the humans insist on continuing along their chosen path of dominance, as opposed to partnership and respect, then horses no longer wish to follow. And the council does not believe that humans will ever change. Not completely. They are concerned that even those humans who do transition eventually will fall back into the old way of dominance. So you're saying that we will lose you? Yes, that is very possible, Winifred replied. She closed her eyes and turned her elegant head away. Jennifer lowered her own head and buried her face in the palms of her hand. After a moment, she sat straight up. But you don't agree with the other counselors, do you? Please tell me you don't. No, at least I no longer do. My experience with Claire gave me hope. And that was Winifred speaking of the woman who was the human who was her beloved partner. When others saw a useless old horse, she saw only beauty. Therefore, I believe that humans do have the capacity to truly change, to once again honor our covenant. Jenna shook her head in disbelief. I can't imagine a world without horses. not just horses. What did you just say? Jenna placed her forearms on her legs and leaned forward. Not just horses, Winifred repeated. All animals. Jenna's eyes opened wide. She sat straight up in her chair. Winifred, I must not be understanding you correctly. I just heard you say all animals. Yes, all domesticated animals. Various species flashed through Jenna's mind. Horses, dogs, cats, cows, pigs, and then back to horses. You mean we would have no more animals? None? The wild animals, the deer and coyote and elk and bear and such, all will continue as they are, but no more horses or dogs or cats. What about cows, pigs, sheep, chickens? No more. At least not if all these other species decide to end their covenants as well, as they are considering. Well, that is something to really think about, isn't it? And I want to read you now what Philip had to say when we asked him the question about covenants or agreements between humans and animals. And then I want to add a little something at the end, because it's kind of like, how is this all going to work? Okay, so here's the question for Philip. Philip, you've spoken about soul agreements between individual animals and humans, which leads to the question of, do various species of animals have soul agreements or covenants with humans? And Philip answers, why, yes, of course, as well as with one another. There are species who, as a whole, provide different services to humankind, other species, or the planet itself. Everyone has a soul agreement to fulfill, whether it be humans, four-legged ones, or stone people. There is always a purpose to life. Within each general agreement of the species, there are also individual agreements. For example, let's look at cows. They, as a species, have an agreement with humans to serve. They may serve by providing calves, milk, or protection for other cows if one is a bull, for example. Steers may choose to give of their body to provide substance in the way of food for humans and other animals. We hear you asking if it is all right to eat the body of a steer. Well, this depends upon the individual human, their private belief system, and the prayers of their hearts. There are those who are to eat meat, and there are those who should not. This also depends on the soul agreements made. Let us look at a great winged one, the turkey vulture. The soul agreement here is to other animals as well as humans, as it is with all species. The vulture has a neck free of feathers. This allows it to partake of an animal's body who may have sacrificed itself for this very purpose. Like the leaves that fall from the tree, their agreement is to return to the like the leaves that fall from the tree, their agreement is to return in the spring. This is an agreement between leaf and tree. Like leaf and tree, all species have agreements or covenants, if you prefer the word covenant over agreement. Some are quite simple, others are multiplex, so it can get quite complex. We also suggest that all treat one another with respect. This is the way of higher evolution and will allow for all to live in the love of oneness. However, as all species, human and animals, evolve, life must be seen as an experience where much is experienced. There are lives where those who are human now once were of the animal kingdom. To remember this provides greater compassion for a species different from one's own. It also provides greater understanding of the individual and collective agreements. If, for example, a human has evolved to where their agreement is to be kind to all, then they must adhere to this agreement. If they fail, they must continue life in the third dimension until they fulfill their agreement. When doing so, they may walk among the beasts others feared and remain safe. If a human does not yet have an agreement of kindness, there are those of the animal species who will embody ferocious adventures with them. Animals, like humans, evolve, and all soul agreements are based on the evolutionary point of the individual and the group species. I'm going to repeat that last one because I think that is so important. Animals like humans evolve, and all soul agreements are based on the evolutionary point of the individual and the group species. Now, I want to explain a little bit of this because I think both readings are saying the same thing, but it gets a little complicated. So let me just kind of give a little explanation here. Now, I think we know that some animal species leave, and we know other new ones come in. And I think as we, as humans, evolve, we're doing the same thing. And I think 200 years from now, the human species will be very different from the way it is now. So will the animal kingdom. And so those who want to live in the ferociousness, excuse me, pulling my hair back, those who want to live in the ferociousness with animals will develop in the ferociousness with animals. Am I I don't know. This is so complicated. It really is. But those who evolve, as we evolve as humans, we also, the animals evolve in their own species. And so humans come and go, animals come and go. The species itself changes. Sorry, I hit the microphone. I'm not used to it being there. And so, you know, in my workshops, I often say, you can't do this wrong. And I guess that's kind of what I'm saying here, that I don't know that we can do this wrong. And hello, Sherry, glad to see you. I'm kind of trying to explain this, and I'm having difficulty, as you can tell. But bottom line, the way I understand from what Phillip said and what is written in what Juliet Tanner wrote in Unearthed Voices, is that bottom line, be calm, be kind, treat each other humanly, treat all animals with kindness and respect. And so the animals evolve in a loving way. We humans evolve in a loving way. And at the same time, we're not going to worry about those who aren't evolving yet, because those animals may be a whole different species coming in, and they may be quite ferocious to work with the people, the human species, who's ferocious. I hope that kind of gives some clarity there. I'm going to just go to our message for this week. And thank you all for joining me week after week. By the way, the predictions for the month of November will be coming up next week. I know everybody worldwide, it's on our mind. What's the U.S. election going to look like? We'll address that in the monthly predictions. We're keeping the weekly for answering your questions. So email me, put them on in the comment section. I'm a little behind, and I'm going to do my best to catch up with all of you and answer all of your questions. But the predictions will be in the monthly. And I haven't looked at that, but I can imagine. All right, let's get our message. We just flip through, and there we our finger just stops at a page. I heard right. If you heard right, then our intuition's in sync. If you heard left, and I always read both sides. If you heard left, pay attention, because there's a message there that you need to hear. So the right side says, is not every war a civil war, a war against our own brothers and sisters? Is not every war a civil war, a war against our own brothers and sisters? And I think that is exactly what we were talking about with our animals. If we're unkind to the animals, we're being unkind to ourselves. If we're unkind to the animals, we're being unkind to all of life. Let's be kind. And then if you got left, here's your message. When you understand the magician's trick is an illusion, even though it may seem real, you begin to understand life. When you understand the magician's trick is an illusion, even though it may seem real, you begin to understand life. Well, life, as we know from the spiritual realm, is an illusion. But we are spiritual beings having that human experience. So we want to make sure that in our human experience, we make it the best we can. Hello, Sunshine. Well, I'm glad. Sunshine says, you did great. It was not that hard to understand. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And hello, Clover. And she's asking about the cheating in the 2020 election, and we're going to address that over the monthly. And I'm going to do my best to get that out. So we've got those questions, and we'll look at that at the monthly predictions. Kelly, thank you. So would you, Kelly, I'm not sure how to save these comments. So if you would put those questions, if you would just copy that and put those questions in, either send them to me to my email address or put those questions in the comments below. I'll be sure and pick those up. All right, my friends, thank you so much. So good to see you on here, and keep in mind our message for this week. It is not every war a civil war, a war against our own brothers and sisters. Thank you, Sherry. Sherry says, I appreciate the message of civil war. Both are animals and fellow humans. Yes. Let's remember, whether it's to a two-legged one, a four-legged one, one swimming in the ocean, one flying in the sky, or ourselves, let's be kind. Love to all of you. Thank you. And Kelly, thank you for putting those questions in the comments so I can pick them up. Until next week, well, actually, I'll see you earlier than next Friday because we'll be getting the monthly predictions out. All right. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for loving us.